Tēnā rawa mai anō tātai mātau e kotoma, te tukotoru tapu tū uri uri whā io. Te atua ia, ko koe ia no tēnei ka tatau mana ki hia ke atua noai, ka tatau whakarahirahi hia, ka tatau tiaki, anō tia, tātou mātou i ngā wā katoa i roto tonu anō hoki ngā tūāhuatanga katoa anō. Kia tātou mātou ki tēnā wā, ki tēnā wā. Ki tēnā kokoni, kia tātou mātou i ngā wā katoa, ai te po, hoi anō. Taku titira anō ko tō tēnei rā. Tēnei pō tonu anō hoki. Tō tēnei rā hoi i roto i ngā tūāhuatanga katoa anō o te rā. Kua rā karekau i te pōkai ka hatonu i roto i te rā. He tino pai anō, e momoho, he whaihua, e rā mea katoa, ko te mea. Kai roto tonu anō rā tātou mātou i tōu wairua korohutu e noho ake atu ana i ngā wā katoa. Tai whakarahirahi tonu anō ai rā i a koe ki roto ki ngā mea katoa. Me mea tia tonu tia e mātau aua mea kia tituki. Whakamoe miti. I te ingoa te iehua. Mene, ka piti hono ka tātai hono ko rātau mātonu te rā rātau te tūā kana. Ko waiho iho mai anō ai tō i te kupu me ki. Te kupu a te atua kia mātau anō te uri, te whānau, te hapu ura tārewa. I te iwi. Te iwi tonu anō, waiho mai anō ai. Waiho mai anō ai. Ai te mihi atu, tēnei ka mihi. Tēnei ka whakatau ki. Ko koutou tonu anō koutou, kia koutou. Ko mātau tonu anō mātau, kia mātau. Ka piti hono ka tātai hono, ko tātou mātonu anō tēnei tātou, te kā nohi ora kia tātou mā kua. Kai te mihi ati, tēnā rā tātou ngā mihi o te pō, o tēnei wā o te pō miki, kua roa tonu anō, ki roto ki tēnei wā, kua taka roa tonu te pō, no reira, kua hua roa tonu tēnei miki, kua rā tonu i te pō ahiahi, kia ki ia tonu ko te pō ahiahi ahakoa i roa tonu anō ai. E no reira nā, nau mai haere ki roto ki ngā kōrero a Tahumaakaakanuimatua Hapu. A Tahumaakaakanuimatua Hapu, Hapu nui tonu ure tārewa. Arara, i tēnei o tātou mātau iwi. Me ki iwi o roto i te motu o te whitu o ngā iwi, rāra o moai hapu. Rāra o te awa, ko mātau tonu anō tērā, ko Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Rāra ko māmoe, ko mōriori, rāra ko māwi, ko māuri kai roto tonu anō rā hoki a rātau. O mōriori putātu, ki roto kia te tini o toi, kia awa hapu, putātu anō rā hoki kia te atiawa nui no runga te rangi, i roto tonu anō i a rātau i a waroa. Kai te mihi atu, tēnei mātau, tētahi o te tū kana i te motu, kai te mihi whānui atu, ki roto ki tēnei wā o te pō, ienei haora. Nau mai haere, mauri ora tonu ki a tātou. Kahuri, kia ora. Back again, here I am, te ariki matua kāia. And back into our kōrero on Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlements 2023. And it's a wonderful time. It's a wonderful time where we can look at settlements in terms of being the end to a long hard fought, hard won, really well worked at plan to get our iwi into the best position possible in the motu, and in fact, in as traditional a position as possible in the motu as we could, and we've done that. We've achieved that. We have, of course, lots of kōrero here in the update on settlements. Lots happening there. Just the only thing we have been worried about that since the end of last year, since the passing of the bill, the final reading, just before the royal assent of the bill, the settlement bill. Yeah, we've been worried because what we needed to wait for was the materialization of the kahungunu uri. Around the bill, their final decisions were that, kahungunu could not have been their iwi, and for that matter, they've been stuck in that fashion, thinking that kahungunu was their iwi, and in fact it was not. They blamed the Crown wholeheartedly for that. We've been blaming the Crown right through this whole thing, ever since 2009. We've been blaming the Crown, but kahungunu rangitane decided that they would stick with the Crown and support the Crown's final conclusions on everything. Well, we changed that because the facts don't stack up as simply as the Crown would have us publicly try to think that they do. The facts don't stack up. And so we hammered the space with the facts. And that's what we've got now, and that's why we're so relaxed. So, aroha mai kia tātou, e nā tātou I waho mai nā, kai te āhua māharahara Heahaanei rā hoki mātou, karakau e puta mai ana ki roto ki ngā kōrero ki te kaua mai e tahi kōrero I runga I te kaupapa. Well, there was no need. There was no need. Because at the stage that we're at, things were always going to come to a close. We had come to a position last year where basically, and the reason why we wanted kahungunu to materialise what they were saying, it's been a slow process. There are inklings there. There are inklings there, but it needs to be fully materialised. But it won't be long. We go back into talks with the settlement entity. We've agreed with the Crown, with negotiations and settlements to go back into the settlement entity talks. But we have to deal with negotiation and settlements in the area of where they see our settlements resting in terms of the conditions and the details around that settlement. Sad news is that they still think, we're a little bit confused, and so are the settlement entities, that the details and terms around settlement would be just as the original details were, but that's not true. That's not true. I mean, we just came through talks with the kahungunu settlement entity that would say that things are quite different now. We became an independent entity again within the process. I mean, we always have been outside of the process, but within the process it was hard to retain our independence. So lots of kōrero there. Yeah, lots of stuff to work through in the settlement update, as you would understand and as you would appreciate. around our settlements that after 4 weeks, lots of kōrero can come about. We've just taken the priority stuff from all the kōrero and we'll deliver that for you today. We're able to just, the good news, it looks like we're going to be able to take advantage of our settlement from this Friday. So we're going to be fine there in terms of settlement. And lots of people have been going around and saying, oh, Tahumaakaakanuimatua hasn't got a settlement, Tahumaakaakanuimatua got cut out of settlement, Tahumaakaakanuimatua got this, got that. And all of that kōrero you need, to confirm kōrero like that, you got to come to people like me. Okay, the big bosses. I'm the big boss in there for Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And if anything like that was happening, I would know. And because that's far from any of the kōrero that I know, and that I'm right at the coalface of settlements right there in the space talking with the primary people in there in the settlement space, and so I know exactly what's going on in there, and that's not the case. We've never been cut out. In fact, they've always wanted us included. For a long time, though, we opted out until last year. In fact, it was November 2021 when we opted in. And the basic facts to that is that once we took ownership, we took tūturu ownership over our people and our lands right across Heahaanoraanei, the Wairua, and also Wairarapa the Moteo Maui. We took ownership and we placed the whakatapu right across. That's when we began to negotiate settlement, because we knew we had the control over our people. We didn't use the normal, kahunurangi tāne must see the Crown process as the normal way of going about these sorts of things. We're tūturu. We're tūturu people in Tahumaakaakanuimatua, and we do things tūturu. Regardless of how Christian we are still our own selves, okay? And regardless of our, we're the Lord first, we're God first. In terms of our tikanga has changed and is looking to change over time, with God at the centre of everything, but we are still tūturu. Guarantee you anything that we decide on behalf of our iwi is always going to be tūturu aligned. And that's the same thing around settlements. We won't agree to any settlement. We've just been to the iwi over the past weekend. Big talks have been happening over the past weekend. Myself in National Office, lots of organisation around settlements, and the actual fact of the matter is we've always had settlement guaranteed, and we are going to settle. What we asked for in the past couple of weeks is the timing on that, and we're just about to get that finalised. Once we have that, we're able to take advantage of our settlements from this Friday, in fact. So just letting you know that publicly, that basically, even before the settlements has begun, we're able to take advantage of our settlements around that time, around about this Friday. So, with that in mind, and with the knowledge that settlements have to happen, it's a little bit confusing at the moment, like I was saying just before, around negotiations and settlements, where they've still got the idea that the Crown is still thinking of what we had initially had in the process from 2009 onwards. And then that up to last year in 2021, November 2021, things started to change. And in fact, what negotiations and settlements has failed to either realise or have overlooked, or maybe they've done things in error, but they seem to think that the whole settlement deal would be under kahungunu rangitane. I quickly got back to them and said, no, that would be incorrect. And if there was any deal under kahungunu rangitane, it would be guaranteed with our independence intact. It would be guaranteed with our tūturutanga aligned right back to our original descent lines from Raiatea Tahiti, also intact. So, for your information, lots of kōrero happening around there, and people need to, tino hamumu tonu te āhuatanga ki etahi o te tāngata. Nui ke atu I a rātau I roto kahungunu rangitane. There's a lot of kahungunu rangitane people that go around, just Joe blogs off the street and they're saying this and that. Most of that kōrero is gossip. Koina nā tonu te hamumu. He hamumu tonu tērā. Kōrero noiho. And so we need to kōrero I te wahatonu noiho e rā kōrero, so we need to ignore as much as possible. Or, if we're that concerned, get hold of someone like me. Someone like Hami Te Whaiti for the Kahungunu Settlement Entity, or someone like Sonia Rimene of the Rangitane Settlement Entity. And I've got those two names written down on here because they're the two head people of those two tribes. I need to get some talks with them pretty quickly. We're all organised to meet up with them again, but we're just trying to get the story straight with negotiations and settlements. But settlements is always happening, Otherwise, I wouldn't get on here and talk about settlements. It'd be ridiculous me, having a forum, a he wāhi kōrero anō, and discussing settlements for Tahumaakaakanuimatua if we didn't actually, in fact, have any. We weren't going to have any settlements at all and stuff like that. The actual fact of the matter is that we've always been settling. We've always been interested in settling our grievances with the Crown. But, the nature of settlements, the conditions around settlements haven't suited us right up until November 2021. We started to get in there, negotiate, took ownership of our regions, our wenua, our wāhi tapu, e rā mea katoa noa. Katoa e rā mea o mātau iwi, o mātau tāngata, o mātau iwi, o mātau hapu, o mātau aitanga, o mātau te tini o mātau hapu, uri, whānau, katoa no hoki o rātau. We took total control over all of them through whakatapu. That's what whakatapu can do as well. And basically that revolves around lots of karakia over all our taonga tiku iho, over all our taonga in these regions, which would restrict any other tribal group or even iwi from even trying to take any sort of position or likelihood of position, rightful position in any way, shape or form. The only way they could do it is by conquering us, which is highly unlikely for most of the interested groups, because most of the interested groups, wouldn't have had a chance to actually be able to do any of that sort of thing to us, given the connections that we have, given the military alliances that we have, given the partners that we have and the whanaungatanga we have in the motu and overseas. Very, very difficult for anybody to take any of our lands and take any control over any of our people, right throughout the muti, from the top of the north to the bottom of the south and all the way up to Punakai ki Tauranga. Even a bit more news there. We've already started on a new draft final because we've actually found we're going to go beyond Punakai ki Tauranga. So we've already started working on that. So lots and lots of kōrero in there, okay? for settlements, and mostly what we're going to talk about tonight is settlements. There's a couple of other things in there, but I would say that in the throes of much of what we're going to be talking about, there's some whakapapa and whakapapa kōrero in there. The talk around the Māori kura and the Uretārewa. All those sorts of kōrero are very, very important as well. Now, yeah, I've got to get to talk initially to Hami Te Whaiti and Sonia Rimene prior to our talks with the entity. I'll have other people with me when I go into those talks with them. And they're going to be very, very crucial because, again, the details and the terms and conditions around the settlement and when that settlement is going to, I mean, we have an idea of when that is. We just want to firm that up and make sure of that so that this Friday we can move forward on everything around our settlement. We're not going to wait for anybody. We don't care what anybody else is doing. We are pretty much the iwi that does everything our way. So long as it's tūturu, we will do it. If it's not, we will always question around it or we will refuse it. And a lot of the time it's for the best and for the best of the majority and for the best of the future and things like that. We no better people to know what is best for us than our own people. And so we move forward in that way, and it's always tūturu. Although our ways are changing, to be God first, just as our two wākana in Joseph and Naphtali and people like that, in the African, Nubian, Hebrew people, Akragana, Ihipiti, Ihipiti. All those lands right across there in northern, west, central and eastern Africa, where lots of our lines tie into the African people, and of course right across into UAE, Iheraira and all those wenua from China, Hong Kong onwards into India, and of course Southern Asia, Japan. Look, we have so many strong ties right throughout the world, and we've still got much work to do in terms of being able to start working properly. We haven't been able to establish that a proper network yet across the world. But first things first, we'll get on with that settlements. We've got a little wee bit more, though we're not concerned with the Waikato Moriori claim. We've got a little wee bit more on that, and then we'll go on to whakapapa kōrero around our Uretārewa and our Māori kura. And Te Are, there I go again. Kaunuai, yeah, there, Kaunuai. And then Te Rongomai. Those are the three queens right at the top there. And of course, the queen of the Tahu, the very first in line of the Māori kura of the Ōwera World D, for us was, of course, Te Rongomai. And so we'll go into a little bit of kōrero about that. I think we got a wee bit more to finish off there with the settlements update. Aroha mai, a little wee bit itchy. But yeah, everyone, welcome back. Glad to see you all, and I'm quite happy. Yeah, it's been great working in the field these days, you know, because we know everything's over. You know, the debates have been had. You know, we know where we're at. We know who we are. Some groups just need to be able to accept that. Yeah, I think that's what's happening in there. We've got a little bit of diversity in there where some small groups among, you know, the different major groups that everything revolves around are a little bit disagreeable to to what's happening. And that's, I mean, why we have different factions in Waitarapataratua now. Because, you know, some disagreed. And so they pulled out from Kahungunu, pulled out, you know, Rangitane went out on their own, all that sort of thing. But however, the other part of settlements e Tautauma is that we still have the complaints in there. So negotiations as settlements and I still have to talk around those. Okay, the actual complaints. And we don't want to have to do that to Kahungunu. We think Kahungunu, you know, through Hami Te Whaiti and their group leading the settlement entity for Kahungunu, has actually come through really, really well for us. And we're quite happy with that. So we're going to be able to achieve much. Now, negotiations and settlements doesn't know, but because they sprung, you know, just in the last week, they sprung the idea onto us that settlement, can happen and should have already. This is the sort of idea we get and should have already under Kahungunu Rangitane though. But yeah, we've got news for them. So yeah, we've gone back to the drawing board and we've come out with exactly much the same. But if we are going to have, I mean, because we all want to be in the same round, that's this round. Now, last year, when we got independence through the Kahungunu settlement entity, I mean, all our kōrero, all the main ideas that come out of kōrero, I always make sure I write them down. So I never forget kōrero, ideally. I never forget it. So, and I just know I scribble away a couple of words. I know exactly what we talked about, the mouth. And I quickly do that before I pack up from whatever meeting I'm at. And that keeps me on track for the next sort of hui kōrero. And talks around a lot of the major matters concerning whatever kaupapa we're talking about. At the moment, it's been a biggie for us since November 2021. And it's important for me, specifically important for me, my whānau, which sits right at the top of the tree here in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So I'm always ideally looking out for that, my whānau, my kids, my mokos, and all the whānau in there, always looking out for them and making sure that I have everything sorted there and ideally going the way that ideally they need it to go. Always in there working hard for them and doing as much as I can possibly do to affect what we need to be affected. And so within the settlements, lots of talks to be had there. And although negotiations and settlements have come back to us with something like that, they're not to know. They're not to know. But if they can guarantee our independence, if they can guarantee the terms and conditions around, because I got back to them quickly before I left the actual matter to National Office and myself. And I quickly got back and I explained, well, these are the conditions. You know, we've totally proven that theory of the Crown, you know, kai te, e noiho, te rā kōrero, ko kahungunu tonu te iwi e nei rohe, kai te e tonu tēnā, and kai te e tonu tēnā no te mea rā hoki e Tautauma, ko rātou tonu te tēnā ki konei, ko rātou tonu te tēnā, anā, ko tō rātou haramaitanga ki konei, ki e nei rohe. kai roto kai te 1,300,000 pea. Kai roto kai te 1,300,000 pea. 1350 around abouts there people started to come here. Okay, and years onwards through there. Okay, and now, they tried to configure Wairarapa Tararua around 1675. Well, kai te he tonu tērā kia mātai. That was one migration where some kahungunu were a part of it, but that is not when they came here. They got here 1350. Okay, that's when kahungunu got here. And they just built up over time. That's what happened here in Wairarapa Tararua. Now, they are Uri, the Uri composite tribe. Uri composite tribes are plentiful right throughout the Motu. And kahungunu are one of the Uri composite tribes of the Hapu Uretārewa Waitaha. Okay? They're an Uri composite tribe of the Hapu composite tribe, Waitaha, or official Hapu. So obviously, Waitaha has an Uretārewa, okay? That's when you become an official Hapu, or a Hapu composite. Composite of what? A composite of an iwi. Okay? Iwi are built of Hapu composites, okay? Okay? Last I spoke about Waikato, I talked about them being a Hapu Uretārewa. That's a Hapu composite, and that's all they are. They are not an iwi, so to speak. An iwi is a totally different thing altogether, as we know. You look at Tahumaakaakanuimatua, we've got 12 Hapu composites that make up our entire iwi. Okay? You look at awa, they've probably got about 10 hapu composites that make up awa. Te ati awa nui no Rungatarangi, they've got about 8 or 9 hapu composites. That's hapu uretārewa. Okay? And there's all sorts of other groups, uri, we call them uri for a basic general term. But they might be, not for an aitanga. Another name for a hapu uretārewa can be he aitanga. He tini, he whānau, like whānau āpanui. But you, Tuturu, cannot call them iwi. And I'll tell you why. Because iwi refers to the most extensive tribal organisation among your people. And that's not what kahungunu is. That's not what te whānau āpanui is. See, they're all composites of another tribe. And that iwi that they're composites of happens to be awa. Okay, whatever sort of status of composite consistency that they are, you need to have a good look at that. We tend to use the uri mostly. The uri, the whānau, and the hapu composite tribal groups. The thing with whānau and aitanga is that they can be called composite hapu as well, because those sorts of names just refer to the preeminence of the primary lines of descent that those tribes come from. Yeah. Or the kahakanui. Yeah. That doesn't mean to say that only those sorts of tribes have kahakanui. You don't have to be a hapu uretārewa to have a kahakanui. Uri can have a kahakanui, like kahungunu has a kahakanui, even though they're an uri. They're still an ariki, even though they're an uri. Okay, because they have an ariki line, you can't take that away from that line, be they uri, composite or whatever. Okay, so we're going to be talking a wee bit of that tonight. And just on Waikato Moriori, I'm quite happy. That's why I just wanted to mention that, because a lot of that kōrero has quietened down. I'm really happy about that, because that bothered me. And that's why I jumped back on for that short time about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I was a little bit upset by some of that kōrero, because I'll tell you why. Because that's a real hard case one, that one. Because if that had become a big take around Wairarapa-Tararua, we would have thought, well, that's a shame. That's a shame if Waikato were to do that to us and come in and start claiming into Wairarapa-Tararua under Moriori. Because I'll tell you why. We just finished one war, basically. Now that's quite a that would be, in terms of politics, that would be in line with the same as, I think a few years ago we had a lot of dirty politics go through, the current parliament under the Westminster system at the moment. That would have been absolutely dirty to bring that in to Wairarapa-Tararua right at that time, because that would have been at the end of one war. How dirty that would have been. And I just needed to confront that and be frank about where we stood in terms of that particular claim, but only around whether it was to become a claim that came into Wairarapa-Tararua, and in fact it would not be effective as a claim in Wairarapa-Tararua for many different reasons. One of those reasons is that Waikato are only a hapu composite, and they're a hapu composite of awa. See? We also did not affiliate to Kiingitanga officially, although we have a line in there. We have a line in there from Hinehoro, from the Pārua of Rākai Whakairi, of some of our most tēna lines in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. She was the mother of Mahinarangi. Now, typical kahunu of the day, I think some of them still claim that line. And Rākai Whakairi has always been Tutura Tahumaakaakanuimatua. They can't claim it because they're tū tēna. Kahunu is far tū tēna. They haven't got the status. They're only in uri. They're not in iwi. Now, all those sorts of things, people, especially when things go a little bit, kōrero gets out sometimes. And I guess that's partly why, we're starting to relax now, because we've got no need to share around too much of that kōrero nowadays, because getting the story straight for most things, I guess we've already managed to do that through me getting on and explaining through these particular forums and forms of media exactly what's happening. Okay, and those of us right at the, cold face, right at the, all of us that get around the table, and we have a good kōrero around a lot of the take, a lot of the primary take that matter for us and our people. Yeah, let's not forget, tribal consistency and status is everything. And if you're only a hapu composite, to prove that you were here over 1,000 years is a pretty hard ask. Yeah, you've all right if you're an iwi, because most iwi can go all the way back that far, but there are some that don't, and especially not those that are more junior. The more junior ones don't. I think Moriori, we're more likely to go back 1,000 years or more. Moriori, Māori and Maori, down to them. But all those of us up in the most senior lines, we definitely go back that far, and we can prove that far. Actually, we've got the luxury of being able to prove back that far as an iwi, and also prove that the taonga tuku iho, that we were, a lot of our lands, etc., were hereditary. Okay, we ended up taking over in those areas. And it's only because that's a natural thing, that's a natural part of order. That when you're more senior, or when you become more powerful, more influential among the tribes, you start to intermarry more, and so more and more whenua and more mana comes under your tribe. And that's what happened to us, being so senior with us among our people. And even our senior lines got fewer and fewer. See, our more senior ones like Moai, Hapu, Moriori, you'll find that there's so much fewer today, but for different reasons, I think. Moriori ended up in a lot of battles in the country, and they lost a lot of those battles. That's what happened to Moriori. And so that's why they became so much fewer. But there were also lots and lots of intermarriages, and very powerful, influential leading tribes of different iwi became more influential in lands. And that's why we've got so much land throughout the motu. Our seniority and our strength as a military unit right across the motu, the power base, the economic base, how we, our tikanga, our law and order, all those sorts of things matter in terms of the real core consistencies of our iwi. It's something to really, really get into, and when you do, it helps you to understand exactly what an iwi is and understand how they function properly. Okay, and so there's a lot more to iwi than what the Crown thinks an iwi is. The Crown wouldn't have a clue. The Crown wouldn't have a clue. And for a long time in these regions, they've thought they were kahungunu these regions. And so for a long, long time, they've been incorrect. And they wouldn't have a clue, but kahungunu and rangitane are not an iwi anywhere. Because rangitane is only a composite hapu as well of different iwi tribes. One of them is possibly awa, and they'd be probably among the most junior of all the lines of awa. And I'm not too sure about that, though. You'd need to check that, but it seems like, because if they're part of, or it could be tini o toi, because they're part whātonga, te tini o toi. So I gather they've got connection with awa somewhere, but it would be with one of their most junior lines. And same with us, with Tahumaakaakanuimatua, but through the Māmoe lines, and that's another iwi in the country. Māmoe is also a composite iwi. See, so you can have some iwi that are composites, and that is because they are iwi that come from an iwi, which is ours. See? Just like us, we're a composite of te awa. But nowadays, we basically own te awa. We are te awa. We are te awa because we're the most senior surviving of te awa. And the big mistake that the awa used to use, they used to always think that they came most direct from te awa. That's not true. They're most direct te tini o toi. Te awa comes most direct from Moai. See? That's where te awa comes from. And we're most direct from there. Yeah, through Hema, Tāwhakinui-a-rangi, and of course te awa himself. And that explains the nature of our reo. Te mea. And so, e tatauma. Yeah, we need to look at that and a little bit of kōrero on there around rangitane and those types of groups. Kahungunu uri, I've just explained. They come from Waitaha Rangi Hapu composite of Tahumaakaakanuimatua, the 10th line. So they come from the 10th line. They're 2 from the bottom of all our composite hapu in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And just one thing there. Someone said that to me today. That we use the p as a way of explaining the sound of our words, like in the word hapu. It's in fact like Fijian. Our p might be a p, but it's very, very soft. Yeah, our p is not a hard out p. It's not p p, so to speak. When we say hapu, we are very, very soft. It's a very, very, how can I say it? It's a very, very subtle sort of articulation through the lips. And so it comes out very, very soft, like a B, in fact. If you listen to Fijians, like they say bulavanaka, but they say it straight out as a B. The reason why I think missionaries did not, and the people that formulated orthographics and stuff like that around Te Reo, the reason that they chose the P instead of the B is that sometimes when people spoke, I guess, a lot quicker or with a lot more intention, a lot more seriousness in their voices and stuff like that, it came out like a P. But really it's a P. Yeah, it's similar to that. Similar to Fijian, our P. So, yeah, someone questioned me on that, so I had to explain that. So I thought, just in case we've got lots of other people out there who think that we're a hapu, that's not true. It's a hapu. Okay? And there's all different types of consistencies of hapu. And what we're explaining is that a hapu composite, or hapu uretarewa, is one of the main consistencies of an iwi. Okay? Waitaha is one, and kahungunu are actually an uri composite of that hapu composite, who is the 10th line of descent of hapu composites of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay? They are also most direct rarotonga. They are also ngā rauru. Now, both of those lines, obviously, they're very junior to us. And also there is, hold on. Oh, we're from Raiatea Tahiti. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep on track here. Raiatea Tahiti, so that, yeah, lots and lots of lines of seniority there over any of those lines. So kahungunu, yeah, whether the Crown likes it or not, we could never have been from them. So whereas back from 2009, they were dictating to us, practically looking to blackmail us and stand over us to go under kahungunu rangitane women. Hold on. When we first registered, we registered as an independent iwi, independent claimant. That was my exact words. Independent iwi, independent claimant. Which told, the representative of the Waitangi Tribunal I was talking to, I can't even remember her name. I think she was a tahana. But, and I said that to her. I said, because, we don't come from either of those tribes. We're from Raiatea Tahiti. And that's how well we know our tribe. And this was back in 2009. Hey. Now, you look at over the last 50, 60 years, kahungunu rangitane have been establishing themselves in these regions. And, I'm so happy with kahungunu uri, the kahungunu that are running the settlement entity at the moment, because they've taken all that on board and they've realised, oh, wow, now we know who we are. And that's why they've all started to pull out of their kahungunu iwi status. What we've been waiting for at Tatauma is for them to materialise that. If they are sort of hinting at the fact, because we're the only iwi. We're not a composite. We are the primary iwi of the region. We are the primary claimant of the region. In fact, we are the only ones that can claim rightfully to the entire of Waitara. Okay? And that's why things change. That's why things change. You heard me say a couple of months ago, I think it was, because I had to answer the question, are we going to war? And I said, well, why go to war? Why go to war? And some people looked a bit confused at me, and I said, well, we've already got them beat. So why go to war? We've got this one. And we do. All we're waiting for is for the other side to get organised. Now, what we're going to do is step in with the settlement entities and work in with them to get this effected properly and within the time frame that we think it's going to happen. We actually think everything's going to happen by next month, which would, sort of show that we didn't need to take it on our own backs to take advantage of our settlement, but we're still going to do it from this Friday. So, we're not waiting around for anybody. We're going to move forward at our pace. If they don't like it, if we're too fast for them, that's too bad. That's too bad, because we know our stuff and we know it too well. We're too well organised, and we've got all confidence in our processes, in our systems, in our tikanga, tika, me takawa, our law and order is absolutely flourishing from right throughout all our land regions. And I'm afraid to say we're not waiting around for anybody. Okay? And we've got to move forward because these are tribes that were snuffed out by the Crown, largely during 1854, between 1854 and 1970. We were when the Hun report came out in 1960, we were probably one of the main reasons, us, Dawa, Moai, Moriori, we were probably the main reasons, Māmoe as well. Even though Māmoe existed, nobody knew whether they were an iwi or not, and they are. They're an iwi. See? Now, we were probably some of the main reasons why the Hun report said that our people as a culture and as a people no longer existed. See, because that was true, because they basically got rid of us, the bulk of us. But now we're back. Okay, so that's the big difference. That's what's going on now. All the seniorities are back in town. And so things are turned around, and things have got to keep turning around. I don't want to tell negotiations as settlements, but they can't sort of do an about turn there. But if they're going to do that they do that with our independence intact, and they do that with the terms and conditions from what we had last year with Kahungunu Settlement Entity. I'm going to have a talk to Rangitane, to the boss in there, to Sonia Rimene, to see what we can get in there, through the understanding that they are going to have to come to the party as well. They can't just commit to an early settlement. I mean, we've got complaints on them anyway. Same with Wairarapa Moana, the other faction in Wairarapa Tararua. They've got to answer to those complaints. And now we can effectively say the whole of Rangitane is Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Through Kahu, through Tahumaatawhaiti, through Māmoe, who is composition iwi of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Okay, so all of that kōrero to hand in the settlements. And we need to, effectively work with those Crown people, Te Arawhiti as well. We need to work with them through the settlement entities. We believe in National Office of Te Tahu Trust, Tahu Investments Limited, with Te Runanga Nui o Tahu, and also Tahu Hapu Nui Tonu Incorporated. That'll be the group at the end of the day that organises around everything, led by our Chief Finance, that's Leanne, great Chief Finance. She will do work wonders, continue to work wonders for our iwi as we move forward. At the moment, Leanne already having taken care of our investments, our whole investments plan. Everything is locked down tight. The financial management plans going forward, all of the financial advising and things like that, even negotiations. I think our Chief Finance is going to end up leading negotiations for us either next month or whatever's happening there. We don't mind if it's next month, but we're still not going to wait around. We're going to take advantage of everything when we are ready and when we want to do things and how we do things too. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to get a bit of a kōrero with Sonia and see what we can effectively drum up in terms of, because we haven't really got an effective partnership there with Rangitaane. I think we sort of went our own separate ways there. They did try to bring us into settlements in 2014, 2015. I think it was Tipene Crisp that wrote to me asking if we would effectively settle under Rangitaane. I said, gosh, that'll be the day. Tipene, you're not to know. But the days that a most senior tribe and an iwi, of our consistency and of the seniority that we have in the motu, let alone in the region, we're the most senior. The days of a tribe like that settling under a most junior are never going to be, are never ever going to be. And that's basically what I said to him. And I said it in not so many words, but that was what I said to him. And I don't know how he took that, because he never got back. Things went quiet and they went their way and we went ours. And then people from Rangitaane got back again. And again, I refused in the same way. So a lot of those settlement things kept happening through the government. The treaty, what do you call it? The treaty settlements through the government of the times, through between 2014 and 2017, where we had offers to settle and to talk to the kahunu and rangitane around settlements. Straight away we disagreed. We disagreed. Basically we didn't see a lot of good coming out of any of that until we had full control of exactly what's ours. And both these regions are ours. Okay, we are the primary iwi in both these regions. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is. You can't change Tuturutanga. Once Tuturutanga is set, it's set for life. There are some things you can change, like the very, very, very negative and mea tino kino, te kino o roto i ngā mea, you know what I'm talking about. You can change those things, and that's why we've gone, God central, God first, God being the center of everything. And encouraging that as much as possible within everything that we do, which is a good thing, because it always will carry with it a good wairua, a good spiritual basis and foundation for everything. And that's what we need. We need to watch the sort of wairua that we carry things. Things get kino. Why? Because we carry a wairua kino, pairota. Within a godly, God at the center of everything, there's no kikino. Okay? And so we get to deal with things in a lot more useful, a lot more, for the betterment. There are better ways of dealing with things if we deal with things, with God at the center of everything. And that's why our iwi sees that as very, very important. And especially te taha ki te wairua. I was always taught by my elders, ko tēnā te mea tuatahi. That's the first thing above all. Te taha ki te wairua. Kia tika, kia pono, kia tai. All those sorts of things. Sort all of that out, and you're home and host. You're on the winning way, you're on the lasting way. Anything that is kikino or corrupt doesn't last long. You might get your successes in there, but, people like me, we look into that. We go, we still don't want anything to do with that. anything like that. No. Karakau te pai ngā mea kino o te āhuatanga. E rā mea katoa. I heard Rawiri Waititi say the other day in Parliament, he was talking around some of the kōrero going on. I cracked up because he goes, tētahi o te kupu o roto Heahaanoraanei putatiki wairarapa, kōrero kairunga, rahu kairara. And Tahumaakaakanuimatua, we say kōrero I runga, rahu I raro, which is sort of similar, sort of the same. But the way he said it is a lot more forceful, a lot more, there's a lot more emphasis on the actual thing being true, the actual rahu iraro being an actual fact, the actual thing. Geez, I cracked up. Because I haven't heard anyone use that kupu for ages, and that is a kupu that says that you say one thing, but an actual fact, you're doing something else quite different. And that's what that sort of saying, that proverbial saying, that, well, it's he whakatauki, it's a proverbial saying, it's he whakatauaki, really, he whakatauaki. But kōrero I runga, rahu I raro refers to like the bracken fern is rahu. And when you rub it together, it's like, it's got this really rustly noise about it, eh? And you talk about that rustly noise being like the rahu. It makes a sound of rahu, and Wairarapa we call that tapi. We call that tapi. And when things rustle together like that, it sort of gives you that impression that not all is good. Not all is good. Not all that is happening is on the surface is actually what's happening underneath. It's like someone meddling with things, when someone's rustling away with things, you hear that rustling noise of things going on contrary to what's being said on the surface of things. And I thought I would share things like that, because for a while in the space, things did look like that. We got so much lies coming through into the space. So we were so glad once we noticed factions of kahungunu starting to change and pull away from those that were doing that sort of thing. Lots of evil things were happening in the space, actually. One thing about... I must mention this, because I did write it down. With regards to the rangitane nui a rangi. This is no reflection on any of the other rangitane nui a rangi. But Tipene Crisp, I believe, has been a leader among them for quite some time. Now, he is reported as being quite derogatory to the Tahumaakaakanuimatua of late. And I'm going to talk to Tipene about that. And he needs to quieten down, because that would in fact be incorrect. Now, he says that heki hau no Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And I just, yeah. It wouldn't, he says that Tahumaakaakanuimatua is blowy, When we say blowy in our language, in our country, what we mean is that they are boastful. And that would be a characteristic far removed from us, far removed from Tahumaakaakanuimatua. We're not that sort of people. As a people, actually, we're quite quiet, and we get on with the job. We're hard workers, but we know the kōrero, and if we've got anything to say, you'll soon know. But one thing that we're not, and that is boastful. So, but I will have a bit of a chat to Tipene about that. I do believe there's some elements of envy in that kōrero. Not only is it incorrect, but it comes from someone who's he's worked hard for the rangitane. When I look at his journey, he's done really well. He's worked hard. But the problem with Tipune's journey is that he's never come from a tūturu aspect. That's the problem with Tipune's journey. He's always been from a very book, very school, institutionalized direction. That's where he's come from. And very Pākehā. Very Pākehā. Okay, well, in other words, it was European-like and dominated in terms of New Zealanders. So the Pākehā or Tauiwi ways of thinking around anything and everything were far more of influence of Tipune. And I just wanted to say a little bit about him because he is one of the leaders of Rangitāne. The only problem is that Tipune never knew. But what he found was not an iwi. What he found also was not a leading people of our region. He found the most junior. So him and I'll have a bit of a kōrero to him because I think him and I need to catch up. It's been years. I think the last time I caught up with Tipune was, and he's a Pākehā guy, and he's done really, really well in tribal matters. But I think at some point things got a bit away from Tipune. And there might have been around 2008, 2009, 2010. In fact, when we came in officially, I think we hit him too hard. We hit people like him too hard. He was a leader that was going places, but when things got tūturu, things got too tough for Tipune, and I want to have a talk to him about that because I know some of his allies and partners are actually tūhoe, and they're not doing him any good. And our people, they're not doing him any good. Yeah. Rangitāne nui a rangi. The consistency can't change. They're never going to be an iwi, but they are a hapu composite, so that's a good thing. The other thing is that they'll never be one of the great leading tribes of Wairarapa or Heretāunga Wairua, and never have they ever been. Okay, so I need to have a chat to him about that to quieten him down. Hopefully I'll get an apology out of him or something like that, because to say something like that just out of the blue, for someone like him, that's a bit out of character. But I think it's because things, became too tough for Tipune, and he's finding it really tough in there. There's a bit of envy in there. And it's just ridiculous saying that, he kihau no Tahumaakaakanuimatua. I mean, that's the most ridiculous statement I ever heard. And for someone like him, there are some things I've heard that, bothered me about some things that Tipune has said to certain people, very special people to me. But I haven't worried about those things because, they were silly comments as well that he should not have said. But this is the worst one of them all. This is the worst one of them all. And I suddenly feel him and I need to chat a little about some of these comments and shut them all down. Because Tipune has to realise that this space has gone way past him. Yeah. I mean, he can use the reo with the purity all he likes. He can use karakia from tūhoe all he likes. He can use all the kōrero of tūhoe all he likes. But in this space, where Tahumaakaakanuimatua is one of the major tribes, primary tribes, and is the primary iwi of the space, you're in big trouble. If you're going to say things like that, you're in big trouble. And so, but I'll have a bit of a kōrero to him to quieten him down, and he might think a bit differently once he's spoken to me, because he wouldn't know. But actually, in actual fact, a lot of the time it's looked the other way around. That's how it actually looks. Tūturu. Tuturu, it looks actually the other way around. So he wouldn't know. And also, what else is in there important to talk about around tipene? He's made such a great contribution. It would be sad to see him go out on a negative like that. Making silly remarks like that. I didn't think it would get worse, but it's starting to get worse. So we need to have a chat to him and took him out of comments like that because they're just in fact not true. Yeah. They're in fact not true. And that's the problem with tipene. That's why I talked about his journey through the space. There's a lot of different people whose journey through the space, they don't realise where it takes them to. Like, who was I thinking about and talking about the other day? I was talking about one of our leaders in worship. In fact, probably both the leaders could be in that space in our worship team at church. I was talking about them. And what it is that for some reason, some people tend to forget their journey through their space. They tend to forget that. And they tend to go on a tangent somewhere else because they can't handle the strength of things around them. It's got beyond them and out of their grasp. And so they start to deny that. They start to deny that to themselves and everybody else around them. Quite frankly, the fact of the matter is, for those two leaders, things are way past them. And they can't keep up. They can't do anything about that. What they should do, the same with those two leaders in our worship team, what they should do is move aside or move to the back and allow the leadership with everything going for them to move forward. However, and I just wanted to use that as a parallel with what tipene's been through. Now, he's come through in a certain way, but he's forgotten that journey, see? He's forgotten that journey, when you're on a journey like that, in a space like this, it's only going to take you so far. You've got to quit after that. Okay? Once you've made that journey, it's time to opt out. Or bring, forward other leaders. Yeah. Time for you to opt out. Okay, and that's what I'm going to say to tipene. If you can't handle it in the kitchen, get out of there. Because it's going to get rougher and tougher for people like tipene who are only book and only people that have had to learn from an outside point of view looking in. If you know the fishbowl effect, tipene, he's only ever been on the outside of the fishbowl. He's not one of the big fish like me. Always on the inside. I've always been on the inside. I didn't always want it. That was my problem. I didn't always want it when I was younger. I wanted other things. And the reason for that was quite clear. It's because I knew tūturutanga in our regions and in our space and among our people wasn't going the right way. That was why I was like that. It wasn't because I was, stubborn. Yeah, I was stubborn, but, I wasn't dumb. I wasn't going to lead for groups that weren't going to do any good for my people or my kids later on, I wasn't going to take them places where they shouldn't go. That's really where I was coming from. And as soon as Tahumaakaakanuimatua came up, I said, thank you, that's mine. And I took the iwi forward and I said, because this iwi is going to go to where we need to be. Okay, and I knew that from my upbringing, my native reo. See how I come from a different journey through the space? Tūturutanga, kalo, te taha ki te wairua, e rā āhuatanga katoa, te taha ki te tikanga, me te kawa, te reo, all those sorts of things. No hoku anō, mai rāno, okay? Te iwi, te hapu, te kupu, e rā mea katoa, te reo tūturu, I wairarapa tararua, te reo tūturu putāti ki roto here taunga wairua, o no hoku anō. So, I just don't want Tipene to bow out one day, or to move aside and bring other leaders through on a negative, because he's done so much great work in there. He has to learn that his two-way alliances and partners can only take him so far. They might not admit that readily. Sometimes, Sorry. I've gone on a little bit of a tangent there, talking about Tipene Chris, but I think that's an important one for both Rangitane and for us. And no doubt somewhere along the line, as I talk to Sonia, I'll get a few words with Tipene. And he's got to realise it's now too tough in the space for people like Tipene. They either have to move aside or become just advisory or not have too much to say. Otherwise, that's why you get negatives like that from people like Tipene. Okay? And they just have to realise. Though, Tipene married an awa woman, I think. He's with an awa and stuff like that. So very close to Whakataunga and all of that. But Tipene's journey in hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And these people can only take him so far. Tipene has a very singular way of looking at things and a very Pākehā way of looking at things. A very monocultural way of, at the end of the day, as bilingual as he is, he has a very monocultural, the stronger influences within him are the monocultural, see? And that tends to be from his Pākehā upbringing, which, there's nothing wrong with that. It just isn't going to strengthen him forever and ever and ever and a day in the space. The space is for people like me. Okay, and so, I just, because he's always been a good friend of mine and a good whanaunga now, part of Awa. And, but he's still Pākehā to me. To me, it doesn't change. It doesn't change, and especially if you're book. And you don't know, he doesn't have te reo tūturu. They can use te reo, mai I te karakia, mai I te Māori o te kupu. He can use that all he likes. Doesn't change anything for people like us. For people like Tahumaakaakanuimatua, ko tahi tonu mea o. Mehe mea tau tī matanga he kunenga mai I roto te pukapuka, ko tā te pukapuka kōkoe. See, we don't, nothing like that changes. If your beginnings come from the book, you'll always stay book. Okay? And especially in our regions, where we, the Tahumaakaakanuimatua, have the primary iwi and the primary establishments going back over 1,000 years, that is not something that Tipene should argue with, because he'll never be able to overcome things like that. And so he just has to accept those things and realise, hey, maybe my time's come to move over or bring through other leaders or whatever he needs to do. But he cannot go on trying to think that he's a major primary leader in this space, because he's not. He cannot be. And I'll tell you why, because he will always only perform at a certain level. To get to the level of people like me, tai ōpuru, ariki mataura, don't happen every day. And that's the, there's no kihau about that. And perhaps he's a little bit overwhelmed by some of the reo and that they're getting coming through their tribe. They're not to know, but a lot of that reo actually comes through kahu, Tahumaakaakanuimatua and Mamoe, and not actually Whakataunga. So he's going to have, he's got to have his wits a bit more about him in this space if he wants to get anywhere from here. But I don't think he should come out in front like he does anymore. Because in actual fact, Tipene is not as strong as he thinks he is. Sucked in maybe, yes. But that strong? No, he could never be. Why? Not a mea rā he pukapuka a Tipene. Okay? No, nothing from Tuhoe changes that. Ko tahi anō mea kōkoe. Me mea ka tō tī matanga ka iroto I te pukapuka anana. Ko tō anō tērā, ko tō te pukapuka. Okay? And that's the way that goes. That's Tahumaakaakanuimatua way. Okay, and that's why I left him in the past. But yeah, just that comment bothers me. That means that it's getting too much for him in the space now. So he needs to consider either moving aside or opting out of the space if it's getting too much for him, because it's going to get worse. A lot worse. Because all the senior ships in the country are going to get stronger and stronger and stronger as years go by. Okay, now, yeah. The shape of settlements is looking good though, isn't it? Eh? Looking real good. And I think we've come through a fair bit of kōrero. I can't actually reach my other phone, but I'm just wondering if I can get... Oh, there we go. There's some timing there. We're almost through an hour and a half, another half an hour. Really? That's where we should go to from here is into the... So, yeah. We've talked about crisp there, and we've got the lowdown on kahunu rangitane. So as we talk through all these things, the conditions and terms and basically the kōrero around the deal that's going to happen with settlements, with our settlements, we should get sorted pretty much in the weeks to come. So we're pretty much looking forward to next month, around about the same time, which is when effectively it should happen. But ours is, effectively happening from this Friday. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens because it depends how our kōrero goes around the talks with the settlement entities. Okay. Some of those things I've said, I mean, if Tipene takes offence to any of those, I'm not really worried. But I'm going to talk to him, and he'll have to talk to me about those things. If he's got problems with those, I'm going to tell him Tipene is getting a bit beyond himself. And that's the same as these leaders in worship getting a bit beyond themselves. Okay, for myself, I haven't done a lot of solo work. I haven't done solo work for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And it shows, So my ability to solo, I need to really focus on that a bit more. But I've been too involved with band work, working with bands and groups, etc., etc., etc. And too focused on, because in the industry, we call that bouncing off each other. I'm too focused on bouncing off other band members and musicians and stuff like that. And I've sort of lost the art over the last 5 or 6 years. No, I haven't lost it over the last 5 or 6 years over doing things solo. So I just got to get a lot of practice. It's finding the time. Because if I've gone that bad as a solo musician, then I need a lot of practice in there. And it's hard to get focused outside of group or band work when you're working with them, and all the time, and to focus on work just by yourself. I tried to do it and just, straight off the cuff. A lot of the time, I used to be able to do that, but I think I've just been too long outside of solo work, and working, just on my own as an artist, and doing some things on my own. I haven't done that for the last 5 or 6 years. I've been hard out, group work and band work and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got news though for Tipene. If he has problems with that sort of quarter, I'd be right. I mean, he knows my experience. He knows where I grew up from, and I've basically, I give it all up to the Lord, but I've basically come through and worked hard for the will of the Lord and championed through the whole of the space. He's not to know, but my journey is totally different to his, and my journey would be Tutura all the way through. His, he puka, mairano. And it tells just the way he sees things, the way, I've read all his writings and things like that. He Pākehā katoa. Karakau I te tūturutanga, paku tūturutanga kairota. And he doesn't know, he doesn't realise this. A lot of his conclusions on a lot of things that happened in times of 1675. Kai te he rawatu, tā tīpene I runga I ngā kōrero I o mātau mātua tūpuna, I roto I o nā taunama, ki wairara patararua putats. So, I have a bit of a kōrero to him, because I've followed his journey, and it's not, it's not a very sheltered one, but it's not the greatest journey. And for me, things were, made too easy for him, because he came through the academia, and I didn't. I had to fight to get anywhere near anything academic, even though I was always an academic. I was an academic from the Tutura sense, so nothing in this world suited me. Every time I went to school, I always ended up in conflict, because I couldn't agree with. Bit different the realms that that trained and taught me. And when you're an ariki mataura and you're a taiopuru, hea tuatanga ke te pouako, And so, he tūpuna ke, he tūpuna mātua ke, he kau mātua, he paha ke, he koroua, he kuia nā o mātau pouako. We don't normally come through a school, so to speak, a school. But I did. I tried my best at school, and in fact, I realised early there was something in it for me. Academia, there was something in it. So when I first got kicked out of school, because I got kicked out of, I got in all sorts of trouble when I was at school. I just didn't agree with anything. Nā reira ka keke haere nei, te āhuatanga katoa o te kura. Keke haere nei. No, I was always a rebellious one. And you know what? When I first got kicked out, I was out for a year. I went to work. I was making loads of money. But you know what? Something was calling me back in there, Something called me back in there, and I said, okay. I don't know whether it was my tūpuna koroua or kaumātua, but he hautupua, te rā e kōrero ana ki aha, sometimes they'll tap you on the shoulder, hey, get back to school, and so eventually I wrote to the school. I said, oh, look here, I've been out in the big wide world. I was only a young fellow, about 15. working hard, I was getting about, $600, $600 to $800. It was a lot of money in those days. And this is about the 80s, 80s, during the 80s. And that was a lot of money, and I was earning that easy. And I was working hard and stuff like that, trucking and stuff like that with truckies and people, gas fitters and all that sort of thing, roadworks. And you know what? I ended up on jackhammer, and you know what? Suddenly I got this urge. I knew my tupuna were calling me back home into the school environment. I went, okay then. And it was a bit of a challenge to me, really. And I thought, okay then, if they think, this is the path for me, then I will go there. And it's just like, how I've ended up a Christian. Same thing. But I think these days that the Lord has taken over mostly a lot of the things that I do, and not so much our tupuna, because I already have everything there sorted with our tupuna, with our iwi, with our culture, with our tribe. All those things are sort of like back of my hand stuff, to me, and I sort of have that with ease, But when it comes to things of the TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai, it was like the Lord saying to me, hey, you haven't finished yet. And I cracked up at that when I became a Christian, because there were certain things I needed to achieve in terms of my culture and in terms of my people that I needed to come this way. There was nothing wrong with my last faith, with my other faith. I just needed to go in another direction. So same God, same Lord, same Lord, didn't matter. It just took me a long time within my last faith to learn about, the Christ's influence within that faith. I didn't always know about that, see? So I didn't learn that in the years, probably 94 onwards. I didn't learn about the Christ's influence in there until then. And but I knew he was there somewhere. I knew God was in there. God was always, and I always prayed to God and stuff like that. So you would think it wouldn't be too much different for me coming into Christianity, but wow, it has. It's been totally different. So same thing, and the Lord's sort of taken over, and I'm not so bothered by that. The Lord's one of, still one of my relatives. The Lord is a tupuna as well, a tuakana as well. There's no difference, really. It's still a tupuna, taking control of things spiritual for me and the journey that I need to take. And I'm really wrapped because that journey's with Lighthouse Church, and lo and behold, I meet a girl and there fall in love. And all that sort of stuff. When things like that's starting to happen, especially for someone like me and in my life, I know that seriously I'm on the right track. Okay, some things don't go so well sometimes in journeys like that, where they revolve around a spiritual journey as well, which sometimes has happened in the church through probably just misunderstandings or other people's journeys getting in the way, or other people going the wrong way and affecting my journey. So, but I'm really wrapped that I know how to listen to the right people at the right time, or the right voices at the right time. And when a voice calls me, and I know that voice is for a very significant purpose. I've always been like that. As arrogant as I was when I was very young, I just, too rebellious, and I was probably, to me too, I was really quite arrogant in those days. But that was because I always believed I was up against a system that didn't like me. You know, it wasn't for me. It didn't accept me. You know, I wasn't Pākehā, so I didn't matter. You know, that angered me. That angered me for a long time. So I was up against the system and a way of understanding things for a long time. But luckily I matured. I listened to my tūpuna when it really mattered. And then the Lord at some point took over. And so here I am, I've been listening to the Lord right through. And lo and behold, the Lord is a tūpuna as well, and a tūākana. You know, so I'm still in the right space. I'm still tūturu, and I'm still rocking it up in the space. But I have to basically help our people around us, and especially the Tahumaakaakanuimatua people, because I think mostly my journey is about them. It's about the people of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Basically, what I believe is I'm paving the way for them. And I always have had to, it's always been my purpose among my people, and to lead them through into, you know, those things that everyone has a purpose. And the Lord came to me as well, and he came to me for a purpose. And, you know, he made me Christian and saved me, basically. Saved me, you know, because spiritually I was probably not in the best condition I could have ever been in. And but it's a lot of hard work. You know, the hard work never stops, and that's a good thing. Because if there's one thing I'm used to, that's hard work. You know, I never get anywhere without working hard. I might find things difficult sometimes, but you know, I work hard to get to where I really should be, rather than somewhere I shouldn't be. You know, and things like that. Aroha mai e tātou, here we are again. We've gone off track again onto something else, but I just thought I'll talk briefly about those sorts of things, you know, talking around people's journeys, and that's been mine, basically. And yeah, a lot of different things within the settlement space, within the Waikato Moriori claim. I mean, we haven't heard too much more about that, but yeah, we're not worried too much about that now, and we know that we're coming into our, as we come into our settlements, etc. You know, things are looking quite fine for us. And we're moving forward. So all those people who are going around saying all these silly things like, you know, we were cut out of settlements and things like that. This ata, he rukahu katoa. Rukahu katoa. We're definitely settling our grievances. Settlement for us is guaranteed. I will reinforce that by saying again, settlements for us is guaranteed. Through the Crown, through the settlement entities, and we've got more meetings with them coming up. And that's all we need to do, basically, in there, is shore up those conditions and terms and details around the settlement. Because what we don't want in Tahumaakaakanuimatua, now that these groups have realised their past mistakes, now that they find that we, having led in the space over the last 15 years, telling them, hey, kai te e koutou, kai te rawa ke ati koutou, you know? And because we've come through in the space to where we've come to very successfully, that we don't make a deal that suddenly puts them in the lead. Okay, so and if we do settle under the Crown's process that says we have to settle under Kahunu, we still want our independence intact right through. See, do you see what I'm saying? We will still want our independence intact right through. All the conditions and terms have to revolve around still our tuturutanga. Now, if they don't consider that, then they're going to have trouble making a proper deal, a rightful deal, a legal deal. Because the reasons that we want those things is because that's the truth. Those are the facts. I mean, what's his name? Stephen Clark, negotiations and settlements. Look, he has to realise, I mean, he's been going through all my correspondence with Fern Hyatt. Now, she's the manager of treaty settlements in Wairarapa. All my correspondence in there would explain exactly what I'm talking about. I always would communicate those things with Fern. Now, all the facts, all the whakapapa that show that we don't come from either kahunu or rangitane, they come from us. And it's a fact. Remember last year I was talking to you about how we asked for, since 2015, the whakapapa. You know, if that is the case and what the Crown is saying is true, that we should settle under kahunu rangitane, then they must have whakapapa genealogical lines that say that we come from them. Now, we've never seen that. We've never found for that. Show us those lines. We were asking for that right from then, 2015, all the way through to last year. Now, we gave it up at the beginning of this year. We said, stuff it. They're not going to come out with any lines of original whakapapa, genealogical ancestry descent of our iwi from their tribes. And you know why they were never going to? It's because the consistencies of their tribes are not iwi. See? The consistencies of their tribes are, one is an uri composite, the other one is a hapu composite. So one is a composite of a hapu composite or an iwi composite, that'd be the case, yeah, or an iwi. And the other is a hapu composite of an iwi. Okay, and they're both very, very junior. In fact, rangitane are the most junior. Okay, and remember back in, was it about 2 months ago? I explained to you the design of our iwi and how I can sort of tell exactly who's who in our iwi right across 260,000 plus of our people. Then look, 200,000. Our people, yeah. There are 6 lines of descent that are very, very specific lines. Oh, that's where that note came from. Yeah, I had one note I had written down on my last kōrero about, not 4 weeks ago, but a couple of weeks before that. And within that kōrero, I talked about those 6 lines, and I gave you the 6 lines of ancestry that they come from. Now, a couple of those I got wrong, because I was trying to remember those off the top of my head. But the most junior one is from rangitane. That's the 6th line. The 5th one is from kahu. The 4th one is Tahumaakaakanuimatua. The 3rd one is iratu no totama. The 2nd one is Tahumaakaakanuimatua te tamarua. And hang on, no, that can't be right. Tahumaaka. Oh, no. The second one is sorry, we had Ira Tūroto Te Tama for the third line junior, and the second line junior is from Ira Nui. Okay, and the first junior line is not from Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Now, I think that's what I said in that last kōrero, and in actual fact, the first line of junior descent coming through before we get to Tutura and Rākainui and those tribes is Tahumaakaakanuimatua te Tamarua. And that's the descent line of Kahunu through Tahumaakaakanuimatua, through Moenga Wahine. Tahumaakaakanuimatua te Tamarua, Moenga Wahine, Tamateuaurehai. Yeah, that's right. And then his mother, Iwi Te Rerewa, Ira Tūroto Tama. Ira Nui is the other one. So his mother comes from the two most junior lines in the among the first three lines of descent, main lines of descent of Tahumaakaakanuimatua. That's through Ira Nui and through Ira Tūroto. Even though they're Rākainui lines, they are the most junior lines of Rākainui. Yeah, they're not not anywhere near any of the top lines in Rākainui. They're the most junior. And of course, the first most junior line of Tahumaakaakanuimatua is Tahumaakaakanuimatua te Tamarua, which is Tahu the Third. Tahu the Third. Moenga Wahine. Our tupuna, who is credited with the ownership of the whole of Heahaanoraanei Wairua, is also from that line, from Tahu the Third, and that is Tūwairo. Is it Tūwairo? One of those tupuna anyway, and he is a Tahumaakaakanuimatua through that same line. Okay, and he was credited with the ownership. Well, of course, we intermarried out the whole, all of our Hapu composites up in Heahaanoraanei Wairua took over very early, and I would say that would have been, Tūwairo, he would have been, who was that tupuna? There's, he was credited with the ownership, the possession, the rightful rights right across Heahaanoraanei Wairua. Well, he came from us. Yeah, and is most direct of Moenga Wahine as well. But a senior line to Kahunu's line of descent of Tamateuaurehai. And, lots of kōrero there, eh? Lots of good kōrero, and whilst we're coming up to the end of our kōrero, if we look at our uratārewa, it's very powerfully set through Moai, through the Moai lines there. Te awa, it's basically Moai te awa, and Tutura te matua. Okay? Tutura te matua. So mostly Tutura te matua, I think you'll find, because that's te awa as well. Now we are basically te awa. So not only is Tutura te matua the most senior of te awa, but we, the iwi composite of te awa, the Tahumaakaakanuimatua, that are the primary line of te awa in the present day. Okay, and we're all a part of Moai. In fact, what you'll find is the primary 5 iwi lines of the country are all Moai, but except we all have our own iwi. And I think it's awa and te ati awa no ringaterangi that don't sort of. Oh, I think Te Atiawa does. I think they accustomed themselves with their Moai lineage, but the Awa sort of don't, which is a shame because a lot of their reo, etc., what they'll find is it's very highly influenced by the Moai Te Awa, Tahu. Yeah, that's where a lot of the influences are of the Awa reo and the Tūhoe. And these are some of the other reasons why we credit my mother, with her work in Wairarapa with the rejuvenation, the bringing back of the reo tituru into our regions she was an awa, and a te atiawa nui no runga te rangi, but she was also a Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And that's the primary line here in Wairarapa, and she's credited with that. And when you look at all those parallels of the development of the awa reo and Te Atiawa Nui no Rungatarangi from there, you can see the relationship through the reo. Same with Waikato, a very strong relationship through those same lines, even though they're tini o toi. If you have a good look at their reo, it's very, very strongly influenced through those lines. Tahumaakaakanuimatua, te awa moai. See? If you have a good look, all the concepts come through there. But, when it comes to, our queens were very, very powerful people. Very, very powerful through Tutura te Matua, connected with Te Awa, connected also with Moai. And we were very, very lucky to have queens with that sort of strength and power and authority in the land. So I guess I leave the last word for them tonight and for this 3 to 4 weeks. Why have we gone off? Because we're redeveloping lots of plannings going on, a lot of strategic planning, a lot of work outside of settlements as well goes on, and working around our current settlements and things like that, and making sure that we've got things down pat. Things like marketing strategies and all that sort of thing is going on. HR, working with people like EmploySure and our own personal outsourcers of HRs in the country, working with people building up our company, our investments company and things like that, and our other businesses that build up also national office and our rohe aukati offices around the country. Okay, we've got 4 of those. We've got 3 major company offices, 1 in Auckland, 1 in Wellington, 1 in Christchurch, that we need to continually build up. And also our regional offices, 1 in Napier, 1 in Auckland, 1 here in Wairarapa. That's where national office is going to remain, but we're going to work closely with Wellington, where we will have the major operations of Tahu Investments Limited from there. From Wellington, and also Christchurch. And Christchurch is obviously where our major base is there, regional base for TeTaiHauauruAukatiTai. Okay, and that's our kōrero for tonight. We'll see you in about 3 or 4 weeks. Lots and lots of stuff going on. But basically, like what I said to you 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I mentioned to you now, a lot of what we're doing now is turning things back around to how they were before everything happened in 2009, where we had to shut down all the major things. I had to take the lead. Everyone was coming into the picture and seeing things as they really were. and how things were shaping up at that time. And it was a real time of conflict, a lot of stress, a lot of strain, a lot of abuse and threats and all sorts of things were going on. Some violence right through that time. And this is when Hahaanoraanei went against us. They didn't want to unite. They sided with the crown. And next thing you know, it almost felt like the whole world was against us, especially in this space. But we rocked up. We said, oh, look here. We trust our processes. We trust that what we have here is the concrete truth and the foundations that we need to grow our iwi. And not only that, but as tuakana and the muti to be a rock-solid example for everybody else. We don't want to run everybody else. I mean, everybody else is everybody else, like all the other iwi are their own selves. They're their own people. And so they should be left to that. However, we can influence them in certain ways. And if they're influenced by us, they like some of the things we do, especially if, being descendants of us. They need to understand the way we're moving is the way of our tuakana as well. And okay, it's not always plain sailing and we don't always agree on everything, but we always do what's best for our people, for our communities as well. All our community groups, all the different cultures and things like that. We're there for all of them. And we look to, right now, to you, Father, to commit us to all those things, Lord, and ensure that we as an iwi, we as a tribal group, as an organisation that is all for community development and Hapu development, or iwi development, Lord, commit us to all of that, because these are the blessings that you gave us. You committed us to that, Lord. You committed us to being able to accept the responsibility of taking on these blessings of such beautiful lands, and being able to build massive tribal, super tribal groups, and people the land, and try to look after the land as best as we possibly could. We haven't been perfect either, and neither have those that I dare say, Lord, most of the Pākehā have been fine. It's just been the crown, the New Zealand crown, in fact, that hasn't really come to the ball game. So we ask that you commit them too, Lord, to things at the end of the day need to come to your will. And your will is always one of righteousness. And they need to understand that too. Not just us. And they need to accept the responsibility. We have the same sorts of responsibilities to our own people, and they need to cut out this dictatorship that they've got going here, because it hasn't done us any good. And they need to understand that you are the rightful way, and your will is always the righteous way. Commit us all to all of that for the good of everybody. And be with our families through the night. Be with our children, our mokos, and understand, Lord, that without you, the strength of safety and without your authority, where would we be? Where would we be? And because you are always for us, Lord, as an iwi, as a people, doesn't matter who we are. If you're always for us, then whoso, ever, anywhere, is there anybody that could be against us? In Jesus' name, Amen. Ka piti hono. A ka tātai hono ko rātau mātonu tērā rātau, ko te tūwākana ki a rātau, kua mate atu. Rātau mā katoa no o roto te tūpuna, o roto no huki ki a rātau. I kawe tonu mai anu ai, i tupu tonu mai anu ai, i te kupu i te rongopai ki te motu. Hai aha, hai kawe mai i a tātai mātau, hai i a mātau, hai tohu i a mātau. Hei kōrero whakatakitaki mai i te mea ki a tātai mātau, ki a mātau. Ki te uri, waiho mai anu ai ki te uri, ki te whānau, waiho mai anu ai ki roto ki te hapu une tārewa. Puta atu ki roto ki ngā iwi. No reira kai te mihi atu, kai te tangi atu tonu. Poroporo a ki, poroporo katoa no, poroporo katoa no, poroporo katoa no i a koutou. Ka whiti hono, ka tātai hono, ko tātou mātonu anō tēnei tātou, te kānohi ora kia tātou. Koa, tātou mā kuau, tonu tēnei, kahurike mai nei ki roto ki ngā kōrero Tahumaakaakanuimatua ki tēnei wā tonu nei. Kai te mihi atu. Kai te mihi atu. Hei a tōna wā hau hoki mai anō. Kawe kōrero mai anō ai te kōrero i ngā kawa. Ngā tātaitai kawa o te kōrero. Kia tātai mātau. Puta atu. Puta atu. Hoki mai hai tau awa. Kai te mihi atu. Mauri ora kia tātou kātua toa. Kahuri.